Okay. One more time. Okay, how about now? Good. All right, so we have a few goals for this session. It's going to be pretty similar to the last time we did one of these online sessions. It's really just to help you familiarize yourself with both the setup of the materials and the facilitation in professional development for the Designing Windmills unit. We want to really spend some time understanding what the differences are between the professional development experience that you'll be working with your teachers and how it will be a little bit different in the classroom as well. Are there any questions or goals before we get started? Okay, so we're going over the goals right now, and then we'll go through all 4 lessons of the Designing Windmills Catching the Wind unit. Lesson 1, we're going to just give a quick overview of the storybook using those images on the slides. And then we'll take a look at Lesson 2, which gives a broader view of the engineering field, which in this case is mechanical engineering. In Lesson 3, that's where I'm really going to spend some time looking at the setup of how to collect this data about how materials catch the wind, because that one is a little setup heavy. And I'll show some classroom video of that lesson in action. And then Lesson 4, we'll talk more about the actual design challenge and setting up those windmills. I think you've already seen some of this in the Teacher Educator Institute that we facilitated with you. So you should be somewhat familiar with the basic setup of the juice carton windmill design, but we'll go over that again just to be clear. And at EIE, we always talk about the different hats that our educators wear in professional development. So we have teacher hat and the teacher educator hat, that's you folks. So today you'll be going through these activities, keeping the teachers that you'll be doing your own workshops with in mind. So think about the questions or concerns that they might have about the activities or the preparation so that you can anticipate them and help them out in your workshop session.
Chantal, Chantal, just a minute.
The concerns that they might have about the activities or the preparation so that you can anticipate them and help them out in your workshop session.
Chantal, just a minute.
Just spiraled. Hold on a second. Yeah, it sounds like we're having some delay or feedback issues. Hold on a second. Yeah, it sounds like we're having some delay or feedback issues.
I'm going to unplug this and just see if we can go off of the regular speakers for now.
Yeah, it's just
small. Okay.
Okay, how's that?
Okay, Chantal, we unplugged our speakers, so hopefully that did something.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. We can't hear you guys. I think you guys are muted. So.
I'm not, I think. Can you hear me now? No. How about now? Can you hear me? Still nothing? Do you think it could be their speakers? It was working before. Nothing? Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So, nothing? Is that good now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, nothing? Is that good now? Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. Yeah. So, okay. Is that good now? Yes. Yeah, we can hear you. Okay. Can you hear me now? Yes. It's very squeaky. But I can hear that you're making sound. It's hard to hear what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, we can hear you.
It's repeating the login. All right, I need to, this is.
Yeah, it's got to be. It was working so well before me. Too good to be true. Did I do anything?
Hi, we're back. Can you hear us? Okay. We can't hear you.
Okay.
There we go. Okay.
I was muted. Now I'm not.
All right, so let's try that again. That was weird. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Was there any other question, or was it just that feedback issue?
Feedback issue. I think we're okay now.
Okay. Great. I will try not to death spiral us and screen share the PowerPoint again. Start screen share is what I missed. No. No. It's going to be fine. Oh, I didn't go to EIE first. That's right. Okay. EIE, screen share, full screen, start screen share. We'll get this eventually.
Great. There we go.
Good?
Yep.
Okay. So I was talking about the different hats you'll be wearing and how you'll be thinking about supporting your teachers from your teacher-educator hat point of view throughout the rest of this session. So with that teacher-educator hat in mind, you'll notice that there's something in the professional development guide that's actually not in the teacher's guide. So it's actually not an activity that would be done with students. You're actually not going to do it. We never do it either. It's an optional activity called the Beaufort scale. So thinking about how to link some of the content of the unit to wind and the science content, but we're not going to do that part. But just so you're aware in case you see that in the professional development guide. Yeah. So we're going to start with our unit, Catching the Wind, Designing Windmills. And I'm going to walk you through a quick overview of the storybook, Leif Catches the Wind, to set the context for the design challenge. So this is our protagonist for the story, Leif, and he is a boy who lives in Denmark. Lately, he's been unhappy because his cousin Dana has moved away. Dana's mom is his mother's twin sister, so Dana and Leif are especially close. They're almost like twins themselves. And since her move, Dana has been trying to lift Leif's spirits. He's very sad that she moved away through email communication. So as you can see from this message, Dana really likes the weather, and she's decided that this move is an opportunity to start a weather website that she and Leif will update with reports from their different cities. Leif, on the other hand, really likes fish, and so to entice him to visit, Dana tells him about her new fish pond. So it seems like a strange setup, but just bear with it. It all comes together at the end. Leif likes fish. Dana likes weather. Okay. So before Dana moved, she gave Leif a bunch of equipment for his new weather station. And so you can see here that Leif is using an anemometer, which is an instrument that measures wind speed. And so every day, Leif dutifully records his weather data and sends it to Dana. She mentions that the goldfish in her pond aren't looking so well. and she can see them pumping their gills really hard and asks for Leif's help. So he decides when he's watching his kite dip and swim through the air, he's thinking about Dana's fish, and he remembers a time when his own fish were struggling when the air pump in their tank broke. And this is when he learned that fish breathe oxygen just like humans do. So as he's watching the boat propellers and the wind turbines churn up the water with the air bubbles, he suddenly has an idea to help Dana's fish. He realizes that one way to solve Dana's problem is to create a wind-powered paddle to stir up the water so the fish will have more oxygen to breathe. He knows who can help him understand this problem, his mom, who is coincidentally a mechanical engineer. She helps design the wind turbines that inspires his solution to Dana's fish problem. So when Leif returns home, he tells his mother about his idea to generate energy to power a water paddle. Leif's mother then clarifies that what he really wants to do is not generate energy or transform energy the way a wind turbine does, but to transfer energy from the wind with a windmill. She suggests that he use a tool that she uses whenever she has a problem that needs solving, the engineering design process. Leif shares the engineering design process with Dana, and both of them, even though they are far apart, work together on different windmill designs via email. First, they ask questions about the blade shape and the materials, and they imagine different types of solutions. Then they pick one idea to plan, create, and test. Based on their data, they improve their design until Leif finally designs a prototype that works. A few days later, he visits Dana at their new home, and together they build a wind-powered paddle that aerates the fish pond. Leif realizes that even though Dana lives far away, they can still be good friends and have fun together. Okay, so that is a very quick rundown of the story. How do I not screen share? There we go. So just a few things from the teacher-educator hat when we're thinking about implementing Lesson 1. So some of the handouts that come with the Lesson 1 activities might only have one version. This unit, the Designing Windmills unit, is actually a basic unit, so it's designed for grades 1 and 2. So if you're using it with 4th graders, you might want to choose the advanced handouts instead. Those might be a little bit more challenging. And there should be some tips in the teacher guide about how to make this more advanced for the upper grade levels. So obviously when you do this Lesson 1 in a workshop, as you've done before, it will be a slightly condensed version. So you can either give a synopsis of the story like I just did, or if you have multiple copies of the book, you can have the teachers skim through the storybook themselves like you did when you came to our Teacher Educator Institute. Another point just to remember that Lesson 1 typically takes at least 3 class periods between reading the storybook and completing all the handouts. And so one tip would be to suggest to have teachers in your workshop think about how they can integrate the storybook into the rest of their school day. Any questions before we jump back in?
No, I think we're good.
Great. Yeah. All right, so EIE. Great. All right, so moving into Lesson 2. The guiding question for this lesson is, how do mechanical engineers observe and think about machines? So this is actually a critical lesson for this unit in particular. Sometimes the Lesson 2s, you might have noticed, might not connect as well to the final design challenge, but this one actually has a lot of information thinking about the energy input and output that will really help students think about their windmill design. So this is a really great connection both to the field of mechanical engineers and to thinking about the design challenge and some of the components in that. So in PD workshops, we begin by asking teachers to think back to the story and identify the mechanical engineers. So in this case, Leif's mother and his cousin Dana, and some of the problems that they work on. So creating a wind turbine to convert wind energy into electricity, and to design a windmill to transfer wind energy into a water paddle. So we use this review as a segue into the lesson activity in which participants will practice thinking like mechanical engineers. So this is a great place to review both what students and adults know about machines. So actually, I might just have you type into your chat box, what are machines? What are some ways that you could describe machines? Or I guess you could speak out loud. I think I can still hear you. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm thinking about when I was teaching 6th grade science, we talked about simple and complex machines. They make things easier for people to be able to exert forces. So anything that does work and helps reduce the amount of effort or work that the human has to do.
Yeah, that's a great definition. We say that machines are things that use, transfer, or change energy in order to do work. Yeah, that doing work is important. So that's great. Thank you. How about just what are some examples of machines, or what are some examples that your students might think of?
Students would probably think of a lot of things like cars, computers, like thinking of more electronic, those types of machines. Right, sort of like the idea with tech in a bag, how their definitions of technology are quite specific. So they'll probably be exceptions about machines that'll be hopefully addressed with that.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great connection, actually, and that's a good point to point out to teachers to link it back to that idea that technology and machines aren't just these very complex digital things. They might also mention just things that have the name machine in them. So it's like a sewing machine, a washing machine, are some of the ones that we hear students think of at this point. Great, thank you. So you'll be doing one example as a group all together, the egg beater, and then you're going to have your participants look at a few different types of machines. So this is one slight modification, I believe, that you'll actually be showing the video of an egg beater in use.
So we actually thought that until we saw the kit, and then we realized you guys did give us an egg beater. So we were like, sweet, egg beater.
Everyone gets an egg beater. Yeah.
Egg beater. Okay. Even how it lives. I have the technology for a fork.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so yeah, so that is easy. We do this one as a whole group example, so you can just stand in the front and show the egg beater or pass it around. And then really the questioning about this section is thinking about the energy input and output, or you could also phrase that as the action and reaction. So thinking about what is the energy action or input into the machine, and what do you do to make it work is another way of phrasing that. And then where is the reaction or the work output, or what happens when you use the machine. So you'll go through with this and you can circle in different colors. You could start drawing in arrows. This is a great time to introduce the idea of arrows representing the direction of forces, especially for 4th graders. I think that's a great time as they'll start to be thinking about vector notation in later grades, just getting the idea of putting in a force with one input with an arrow and the output where that force goes.
And I also, just for our facilitators, so this unit is it's sort of fitting in with renewable energy and that idea of renewable energy, but I think this is a great opportunity to show teachers that idea that like physical science is also included with this piece, so that like you have to have knowledge of something that seems more physics related when you're talking about things like renewable energy, which they a lot of times associate with like earth science or environmental science related. Sort of the interdisciplinary science piece, because I think this unit does focus a lot on physical science connections, but that's okay, because that helps students understand the part about the renewable energy and wind being a type of renewable energy source.
Well, and it's not human energy necessarily that generates it. So the physical.
There's a lot of tie-ins here, to simple machines as well. Yeah, that's great.
Right. So just understand that like that's actually okay, that like, because I'm concerned that people are going to focus so much on the fact that it's like we're dealing with forces and things like that without realizing that that's part of the piece of renewable energy, that like you have the inner workings of machines in order for it to be able to produce the energy you need, or transfer the energy you need.
Cool. Great. So then you'll divide up the groups that you have. So each group will get one machine as an example and then share out. So not everybody needs to examine each machine. I think that's the same way that it would be done in the classroom. And so the machines are the mechanical pencil, glue stick, and the can opener.
So what we're doing is since we have about six groups in each room, so 2 groups will get the mechanical pencils, 2 groups will get the can openers, and 2 groups will get the
Yeah, that's exactly what we've done. Yep, that works well. So they'll have these handouts to help guide them so they can think about the purpose of the machine and, again, the energy input and output, the resulting motion, and then some advantages and disadvantages of using that machine. So this actually becomes really important during the design challenge because of the connection between that linear input of the wind and that circular output of the windmill blades. So when you make that transition from lessons 3 to 4, and I'll remind you about this when we get there, this is a great spot to point back to the difference between, say, the mechanical pencil, where the input is the linear clicking on the top of the pencil and the output is the lead coming out, versus something like the glue stick, where you turn the bottom in a rotational motion and you get a linear output of the glue on one end. So just thinking about the direction that those inputs and outputs are and how you have to change the components of your machine to get at that motion. Okay, so here's some reflection questions, again, to make that connection. Also, how things are more complicated than the simple pencil, again, about the 2 different directions of motion, and then just making some comparisons and what is similar, what's different. What's similar is that they all are machines that are using energy to do work. Okay. So that's lesson 2. It's a really quick lesson. It's very adaptable for professional development. It works very well in that way. So again, this lesson just closes with a review of the guiding question. And this is a great place to have teachers refer back to their original list of examples of machines and what they first thought machines were, and ask if there's anything that they would want to change or add, or think about how might a mechanical engineer work on some of those machines that you mentioned and to improve them. Some good connections. Okay. So I'm actually just going to stay on the PowerPoint for this teacher-educator hat part. But again, you might want to have the teachers during the teacher hat time of their workshop think about other modifications that they might do with this lesson to suit the needs of their students. Like you were mentioning, those connections to the science and to renewable energy is a great idea. All right, so moving right along into lesson 3. So again, we always revisit the storybook context as to maintain that connection. So we're going to start introducing the goal of the design challenge. So Leif in the storybook needed to create a windmill to aerate a fish pond. And so the goal is introduced, which is very similar in the workshop, but there's no pond, there's no fish. So the goal for participants and for students is to work as mechanical engineers to design blades for a windmill that capture the wind's energy to do useful work. And so this is where we begin the ask step of the engineering design process and have participants brainstorm a list of questions about that goal. And so you can give them some thinking time in their groups first and then ask them to share any questions they have and record these on a chart, or just shout them out as they come, whichever you prefer. We leave that goal intentionally kind of vague in order to generate some good questions about the design challenge. We don't give all of the information. Oh, hold on. Oh, no. Yeah? Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Just making sure. Great. So we don't give all the information about the design challenge here in the goal because we want them to come up with some good questions asking to clarify and to get more details about that question. Okay. So that brings us to lesson 3 after they've brainstormed the list of questions. So focusing on some of those questions, hopefully they maybe started asking about materials and properties of those materials that will help them catch the wind. So this lesson 3 is slightly different than some of the others in the other units. It's more of an open-ended design challenge than a really rigorously structured scientific test, which isn't to say you can't make it that way if you want to. It can also seem like it's a little bit out of the blue because now all of a sudden our guiding question is talking about sails and how a sail catches the wind. So be sure to explain that the focus of this lesson is you're going to be using the same materials that you will to make a windmill. And really the idea is trying to learn how well those materials catch the wind, as well as some other properties, size, shape, things like that. All of that will be used as they're designing their windmill blades as well. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to the video so I can show you the setup for this. There's a sail track that actually does take quite a bit of prep work, but once it's built, it can be reused over and over again. So I'm going to switch over and show you ours that we have here. Oh no, death spiral. I'm so bad at this. Okay. Sorry. All right, so here I have a sail track that we have made and reused many times. So when you store it, you're going to want to wrap it up like this, kind of like a kite, so that the fishing wire doesn't become tangled. That's really the biggest problem. So I'm going to start unraveling it here just to show you a little bit of what it looks like.
Duct tape in.
So, yeah.
There is a really great how-to video online. It's long, it's about 10 minutes, so I'm not going to have you watch it now. But I think you're going to be doing materials prep right after this session, right?
Yeah, we actually made one version of them already, so I'm going to show them in sort of how it looks.
Perfect, yeah. So I would recommend watching that video as you're creating it. You can pause it at any point, and the instructions are all written in the teacher guide. But it is kind of a pain with all the fishing wire. But some of the important parts are that the actual sail or the boat itself has, it's made of styrofoam, and there's a reinforced center. On each side, there's actually an extra little bit of styrofoam that's been taped right in the center, so that when we stick a sail blade in there, it will be reinforced, it won't fall over. It's like that. Some other things to keep in mind, you want these to be at least 8 to 10 feet long so that you have enough distance for the sails to travel nice and far. All the sails will be built on craft sticks, and it's important to let the teachers and students know that you want the blade or the sail facing the broad side of that craft stick, because that's the direction. There's only one way to place this into the boat. So make sure that they're building on the flat side of the craft stick. And then when you're going to store it, the best way is to just wrap it around itself. I didn't do a good job here with this time, but if you leave one end already taped down and then can just start rolling it over itself like that, is a good way to store it. The important things when you're actually setting it up and taping it to 2 different tables or whatever you're using to span that distance, the most important things are that it's flat, so it's not going to tip from side to side, and it really has to be very taut. So pull those strings as tight as you can, really take them down hard to the table, and give it a test run before you try it out with your participants. So just give the boat a nudge and see if it'll actually glide down that track far enough. Just fiddling with that before you get started. Do you have any questions about that, or are you okay?
Okay.
I think we're okay.
We're good.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, again, that how-to video, Nicole just sent the link, so you can check that out when you're making one. But if you already have one there as a template, then that should be good. Okay.
Yeah, so then the only thing that, once these are made, the prep that you'll need to do in the morning is to take these to 2 desks. So after you pull it out,
Secure, yeah.
yes, to secure. And you get duct tape in the kit, so that usually enough to tape them taut.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I'll show you a little bit of classroom video, and there's a couple other tips about this sail track that come up there. Okay. So once you explain the setup, you would ask participants or students what some properties of a wind catcher, which is what we're calling a sail, are that might be important to moving the raft, and just have them start to think about what things they might need to consider, such as the shape of the sail, what material they use, the size, the orientation, all those kind of things. And this is when we do our sample bags and get into that materials exploration. So these are all the materials that are available for creating the sails and also for the windmill blades. So I don't know, are you going to be using sample bags?
Yes. So
okay, great. That's fantastic. We really recommend those. It's so important that everyone gets to see and touch and manipulate the materials. So the sample bags are great because they're such small pieces of the materials. Students and adults, they're sometimes tempted to start building their sails if you give them the full-size pieces. So that's why those little mini sample bags are great. It really has them focus just on the properties of the material. Here we don't really distinguish between the object and the material and its properties, again, because this is a basic unit. But for fourth graders, you might want to make that distinction about object properties versus material properties. And then we usually just model. We don't have to fill out this entire chart in professional development. I know sometimes it's tough on time, but we usually just do a few lines of it at least to model how this would be done in the classroom. So after the chart is completed, you then start thinking about which of these properties might be important in making a good sail and which ones are unimportant. Things like color are not going to be important for designing your sail. Which materials you think would be good to use, and what shape of sails. So starting to think about now building a sail from these materials. In the classroom, we have handouts that go along to help guide students with that thinking. So circling or crossing out the materials that they think will work well and will not work well, and also making predictions about the shape. Okay, so then when it's actually time to test the materials, I believe a modification for your group is that each group will only be allowed to test 2 sail designs, so that with the limited time in the professional development guide, I think this section is about 20 minutes, but you'll just be giving them 10 minutes to test out 2 sail designs. One of the other differences between this and in the classroom is in the classroom, students actually work by themselves. So for a basic unit, we usually have students work in pairs for the final design challenge. For older grades, we usually suggest groups of 3 to 4. So I think that's why in this one, in lesson 4, they would be working in pairs, but in lesson 3, to give everyone a chance just to experience the materials, they would work by themselves. But in your workshop with your teachers, they can work in groups and still get that experience with the materials. And again, this is kind of a free-for-all section. They don't have to do a scientific investigation of, the same size, shape, and just vary the material. They can really make anything out of whatever they like, and using as many materials as they would like. It's really a chance to explore, but it can be modified to make it more of a testing type of experiment. So after the people have had a chance to actually test some of those sail designs, they would share their designs with the rest of the group so everyone could get a sense for the different materials and sizes and designs that work well. And so just showing what those are and looking around and seeing what was similar and what conclusions you can be drawn about what are the properties that are important for catching the wind. So there's lots of different ways to display that data from that exploration. So you can give them handouts. We do have handouts. We'll first returning to predictions and seeing if those predictions held true after seeing what actually happened with the experiment. And then on the handout, they could record for their 2 different sail designs what materials they used and how far it moved along the track. So in the basic version, there's just that little picture of the fan and the little diagram of the sail track, and so they would draw approximately how far it went. For the more advanced, for the older students, you could actually have them measure. You could have a tape measure or a yardstick, some other way to make that more quantitative. We've actually taken this activity in some of our PD and added a little bit more math into it and actually made a line plot of different sail designs and how far they went. So there's lots of things that you can do to record this, or just keep the sails out on display somewhere in the classroom so that students can come back and take a look at them as they're thinking about their windmills. Okay, so that brings us back to the guiding question. So thinking about how the properties of the sail affect how well it catches the wind. I am going to show you a little bit of classroom video so that we can see some really great questioning from the teacher, as well as just what the sail track looks like in the classroom. Hers is actually a little bit shorter than we recommend, but she has it set up very well, so we'll take a look at that. This is a second grade classroom in Framingham, Massachusetts, and it's led by Miss Patricia Slater. And I'm going to have Nicole send you the link to that video if you want to watch it. We're only going to watch about 5 minutes, so if you want to switch over to that, you'll want to start at around the 6-minute mark and stop at 11 minutes and 15 seconds. So this is jumping in after students have already started designing their sails. Now they're testing them, and then there's a little share out at the end. So go ahead and watch that, and then just give us a thumbs up or let us know in the chat box when you're ready.
Okay. Where's the link? Sorry.
In the chat box, do you have that window?
Yeah, I have my chat. Is it under? Let me see if it's this.
In the chat, in the Hangout.
Yep. So I'm looking.
You got that? Okay.
Each box it says Chantal and EIE.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't. Well, let me see. Let me try again. I said it. Looks like we're getting repeated delay. I still have that chat, but I don't see. You said Nicole sent the chat.
It's from EIEPD.
Oh, okay.
But it's a group chat, I believe. We should all be on there. Did you see a blue button on the top left? It'll say chat.
Do you guys see this? Am I? Oh, sorry. Yep. See it now. Got it. Was that the right one?
That was the, yeah.
Yep. Okay, here we go. All right, and it was 6 minutes.
You could try it first, and if it doesn't, you can always go back and redo it again, right? So maybe. Yeah.
Oh yeah, really okay.
Stop listening. Let's do a little worse now. Alright.
That's good to know.
Why do you think?
No, that it'll probably.
And on low.
Okay, so let's think about this. Let's think about this. What is happening to these sails? Is it catching the wind?
No.
No. The wind is using it. The force is there, but it's not able to catch it. So what do you think? What do you think you should do to make it catch the wind?
So make it a little more around to have the wind go in it and push it.
Okay, so try that. Yeah. Okay, who's next? You want me to try? Okay. Now how am I going to do this?
That is a one big sail.
All right.
So
And that's actually what they get the materials in, is they give them that bag. So I wonder if that's part of
blocking it.
Okay, so what do you think you're going to do to fix it?
Pick it up.
Turn all the way down. It gets as far as about 29. So what do you think you should do? What's getting in the way so it won't get all the way to the end?
Plastic bag.
Yeah, the plastic bag actually worked and caught the wind, but it's too what?
Low.
It's too low. What is it, Daniel?
Too big.
It's too big. Remember we talked about the size and the shape are really important. So maybe the size is just a little bit too big. Maybe you can make your bag a little
Small.
Good job.
Nice.
So that's going to work out. Good for you.
They cut it.
I guess. Whoa, that is.
Good job, Win.
Yeah, we use
That's a
the
lot.
cups.
Is that the first design, too?
Yeah.
Wow, awesome. What caused the wind, do you think? What part caught the wind? This and this, you're right. You went through the tube and caught it? Good job. Lots of places, huh?
Can I keep this?
You can keep it.
It's my design.
Yeah. Did you make something? Did you improve something? Make something move?
Yeah.
Yes, you did. You did a great job. Tell me about your design, Benjamin.
I thought 3 cups would catch that air and push it, but only if there's stuff right here to make sure it doesn't so let's say that the air was going over there, make sure it doesn't escape.
Oh, good job. So you were really thinking, weren't you? So was it successful? Yeah, so the cups were really successful. How many people actually use paper cups? Raise your hand. Wow. Good job. How about you, Mary? What did you use?
My first one I decided wouldn't work.
Why did you decide it wouldn't work? Did you get to test it? You didn't even test it?
So it was too big, and whenever I just told this one it fell.
I need a bigger cup.
And I used a lot of material, and I thought these could hold it up, and the tape was falling off, so I couldn't hold it.
So before you even tested it, you did what?
I asked myself, is this gonna work?
And what happened?
I decided no.
Oh, good job. So do you think engineers actually do that?
Yes.
You're right. And so what did the second one look like?
It looked like this compared to the first one.
Can I hold the first one? Yeah. Wow. And if this is your second try? At the same materials, except for you missed the paper cups.
Yeah, I didn't, because the paper cups were really hard to do.
Okay.
And I kept zigzagging it, and it was really hard to put on. And I decided if I put them on, then I'd have to use 2 sticks, and then I couldn't really, and then it would become like this one, and it wouldn't work.
Okay, good thinking.
Did that one work?
So did that one work?
It worked really well.
It really. Anybody else have a material that really worked well besides the paper cup, aluminum foil? What did you use, Dylan?
Paper and a stick.
Paper on the stick. What kind of paper did you use? Did you use regular copy paper or did you use index card?
Index card.
Index card. Why did you choose the index card?
Because it's on paper, so I thought it would be nice and easier to catch the wind.
And did it work?
Yes.
You're right. Good job. So, you feel like my...
Here we go. Uh-oh, I lost her. Here we go. Here we go. Hi, we're back. Oh, we can't hear you.
There we go. Yep, I muted myself for a minute there. Okay, so I love that video. You get to see some really great designs. Those are actually some of the most common problems that teachers will see with student sail designs. They're too floppy and they're not actually catching the wind. They're just being blown away by the wind. And I love how Patricia guides the students in thinking about that idea. Or sometimes they're just too big, like that plastic bag, or they're too heavy, like that really large aluminum sail. And I love seeing that girl's thought process as she decided that that was not going to work and she was going to have to make a smaller aluminum sail. So yeah, again, that track is a little bit shorter than we recommend. You know, it's nice because even if some of the designs can get that far, it's more challenging to have a longer track and actually have students try to get all the way down the track. But what I liked is that she placed masking tape around either side of the track because you can't see the fishing wire. It's almost invisible, and so you don't want students running through it or anybody walking into it. So that masking tape on either side, just to mark where the track is, don't walk through here. You can even put a sign on that masking tape, is a really great tip. So in our teacher-educator hats, I think I mentioned this, but the students would work independently in this lesson, but in your professional development, they can work in groups. And you could make this more of a scientific experiment. You could have each group test a different variable, thinking about sail material, size, shape, different variables like that.
And we're going to have 2 sets of tracks set up, so that way.
Great. Yeah. That's even better. That way the testing goes really quickly and you can get more groups in and out. That's fantastic. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to switch back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so we just watched our classroom video. All right, so getting into our design challenge. Now we start to give a little bit more information. So we say that the challenge is to work as mechanical engineers to design windmill blades that will harness the wind's energy to lift a container of weight. So that's where we actually explain what that useful work is that the windmill will be doing. It's to lift a container of weights. We're not aerating a fish pond. So that's the difference between this challenge and the storybook. So our guiding question for lesson 4 is putting together everything that we know about materials and their properties, using our creativity and the engineering design process to design windmill blades that catch the wind. So this is a good point to go back to the list of questions that they created at the start of lesson 3. So you can hand out the engineering design process handouts at this point and start thinking about that ask step. So you can go back and start explaining some of the things about the setup, about the materials and what they'll be allowed to use. So typically we distribute all of those handouts in one packet and walk the participants through it, and then we remind the participants that students will not be working on all of these steps at once. They'll just be dealing with 1 or 2 steps at a time. Okay, so I'm going to switch to the camera again to show you our windmill setup. I think you've seen this, but it's just helpful to take a look at. Okay, so have actually, I think that's a little closer now. So the windmill is made out of the juice cartons, so you do have to collect those. I believe you're going to have about 6 of them in your workshop group, so that you don't have to have one for each pair of teachers. Again, that would be what you would do in the classroom with younger students, but for adults, you can have them work in larger groups, and then you have to collect fewer juice cartons. The thing with the juice cartons is you want to make sure to wash them out really well because they can get kind of smelly after a while. That's why we recommend juice or like soy milk or almond milk instead of cow's milk. Those, no matter how much you wash them, they just do not get clean. You probably know. So the windmill, you want to poke a hole through the carton. The teacher guide shows approximately where this should go, but just somewhere near the top and the center to put the dowel through on either end. And then in the back of the windmill, you'll have a paper cup that you will punch 2 holes through to loop the string through. We have ours attached with a paper clip here so that we can remove the cups. It's just easier to pack when we travel. I think it's written in the guide. This is all just one piece of string attaching the cup to the dowel. And then you have, on the other end, you have a styrofoam ball, which is the hub. And so what students are designing are just the windmill blades themselves. So they can choose the number of blades, they can choose the materials that they want to use, the size, the shape, everything about the blades, but everything else here is set. So that's what they're designing. You do want to weigh down these windmills. So this one we actually put some weights. You can use washers that come in the kits or pebbles, rocks. You could also just fill it with water and keep the cap because they will start to tip over if they design especially really big windmill blades. It might start to tip. So, so you can weigh down your windmill base. And then it's important to think about the fan placement. So we actually find it works well to have some sort of block or box or books because they're probably usually be dangling off the end of a table because it does drag down a bit. But sometimes the blades are so large that if you had the windmill on the ground, they would hit the ground. So you want to prop up the windmill so that the windmill has plenty of room to spin. And that means that we want to prop up the fan as well so that the center of the fan lines up with the center of the windmill blade. well. A couple other tips we have are sometimes what happens is as the fan pushes the wind, the hub actually gets pushed back right up against the carton, and then it doesn't turn very well. So I believe the instructions in the teacher guide and the professional development guide are to put a washer between the juice carton and the styrofoam ball, and that will keep a little bit of space and allow that to turn more easily. Something that I picked up from teachers in the classroom is you can actually take another paper cup and stick that on your motor, and that will actually just create that extra little bit of space between the styrofoam ball to keep it from pushing back against the windmill hub. So sometimes if you're having that problem, you might want to add that just to prevent it from being pushed back all the way. Some of the issues are that the styrofoam ball, eventually this gets pretty beat up, so you might need to replace them if you're using them over and over again. It's really important that the connection between the styrofoam ball and the dowel is nice and tight, because if that's loose, then if the fan turns the styrofoam ball, but there's not a tight connection here, then the hub will spin, but the rest of the rotor won't spin and it won't lift the cup. So you can just use masking tape to really attach so that the rotor and the hub are all one piece, or sometimes you might just need to take off the styrofoam ball. You could technically just have one windmill set up for testing and the teachers each have their own hub and design the hub with the blades, and then they would come up to the testing station and attach that one juice carton. So if you do only have a handful of juice cartons, that's good.
Have the teachers waiting, you know.
Any questions about the setup of the windmill?
So they'll have this.
Yeah, so each group will get, so we'll make 6 of these per room. So each group will have their whole thing, so then that way they can test it themselves and do it that way. There will be 1 fan per room, so each group will have to go up when it's the moment of truth to like use the fan. But that's, you know, that way that's their share out time for them to be able to test it out and for everybody to be able to watch that. So, and there are washers that come in the kit, so that way those can put in the cup to see how much for the weight for that.
What are we using for that foundation?
I would say you could use
a book or
a book. I mean, you could use the teacher's guide. It's a little bit uneven, I guess, but just enough. You know, whatever you have. We didn't. There's also in the kit, I think you get a whole block of copy paper, so you can put a lot.
That's a great idea.
There too, because you know, we're not going to use 500 sheets, so you can use that stuff.
That sounds good. And yeah, I'll talk a little bit about the washers. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint and go through the rest of the slides. It talks more about the details and about the goals, what they'll actually be designing.
Okay, great.
Okay. Okay. So I actually added in this slide myself. I started doing this, again, because of that connection between the different types of energy input and output, and also just to make that connection stronger back to lesson 3. So at this point, when I would start introducing the challenge to the participants, I would have them start to think about what's different between what they did in lesson 3 with the sailboat design and this lesson 4, where now they're having to think about the rotational movement of the windmill. So again, making that connection back to the linear and rotational movement. So you can summarize everything about the purpose of the windmill. It's to lift a cup of weights is the purpose, and you'll test it out using the fan and the setup that we just showed. Have them think back to the materials that worked well in the sail designs and how that knowledge can be applied to the windmills. So this is when we start thinking about the variables that you might need to consider when designing blades for a windmill. So some of these are the same as for a sail, so the material, the size, the shape, but there's also a few new factors with this windmill idea, as now you can decide about the number of blades and their position or their orientation. so that angling. So that actually becomes really important when we start thinking about rotational movement. So in the ask step, we have teachers and students do this individually so that they can come up with their own personal ideas and get that on paper first before working with the group. So some teachers have found it helpful to send this home actually as a homework assignment. We usually give about 3 to 5 minutes for participants to work on this step on their own. Usually they're just really eager to start planning with their group, so you'll start hearing chatter even before that, and then they're ready to move on to the plan. So there are some pages in the plan. There's a few different views of the windmill, and so they can draw what their blades will look like, as well as listing out the materials. So they will only be designing one windmill for the group, so this is where they need to decide how to collaborate and come up with one idea to test. And the create page is where they will record all of the results after they've tested it. So the goals of this challenge, it's actually, I love this because it's stepwise, and so you can you meet each of the criteria. So the first goal is just to design windmill blades that spin on the highest fan setting. So when the wind is going the fastest, it spins. You can then try to see if those same windmill blades will spin on a lower setting of the fan, so medium. And then you can start adding weights to that cup. So we use washers, and your first goal might be getting 5 washers in the cup and still having the windmill lift that cup up. And then you can increase that to 15 washers or as many washers as possible. And again, each of those could be done on medium or on a higher fan speed. So this is actually one that's great because the improve step is kind of already built into the create. So even when there's not a lot of time, especially in professional development, to actually do a full improved step, in the classroom, that would be an entirely separate lesson to go back and retest and redesign some windmill blades. But here, this is actually an easy one to do kind of on the fly. They'll be making adjustments, maybe sometimes even at the testing station as they're seeing how the blades catch the wind, or they're pretty quick to be able to go back and try to meet as many of these goals as possible. So this is a way for them to record all of those different iterations where the blades are positioned and what they look like, and then the result of those tests. So it's really important, because it's so easy to make those quick adjustments. You can lose track of what you did, so it's important to remember to record your results. And then this is the version to write those observations down, as well as the number of weights. Okay, so that comes back to the guiding question. So using everything that they've learned about materials and properties to design windmill blades that catch the wind. Do a group reflection or a share out, thinking about their designs and the similarities or the differences between them, and again thinking about those improvements. So you could actually give them a couple minutes to spend on improving, just talking about it in their groups, even if you don't have time to go back and actually create those windmill blades. At least giving teachers an option to think about that really stresses how important this step is for students to get at least one more round through that improved phase, especially if those windmill blades don't turn. Which brings us to that other classroom video. I think you've already seen this in our Teacher Educator Institute, so I'm not going to show it again. I'll have Nicole send you a link in the chat box if you want to watch this one later. But this is one that we did as part of an activity that we call effective questioning. So we have actually 2 sets of classroom video for this Windmills unit, so they're both really great teachers, both 2nd grade. Unfortunately, we didn't get that variety in age level for this unit. But if you do have time to check out either or both of them, in lessons 3 and lesson 4, they each have really great questioning strategies to get at what students are thinking and how to get them thinking about improving. So in this video, Laura Sublet is working with some students and their windmill blades just will not turn, and she really has them persist and start thinking about how they can improve them, and they all do eventually succeed. So I just wanted to point that out, that that's there. If you've come to that Teacher Educator Institute, you actually have access to the resources to run that activity with teachers at some point if you'd like. It does make the nice connection to the windmill unit. We use it kind of as a standalone. You don't need to have too much background about the unit, but it is a really great resource. So I just wanted to remind you about that. Okay, so I think that brings us almost to the end. My only thoughts about the teacher-educator hat would be it's important to remind your teachers about how difficult it can be for students to go from their individual imagined ideas to coming up with one plan as a group that they have to decide on, because they have to start considering the ideas and the perspectives of others. So it's a good time during the teacher hat time to think about how teachers can support students with that transition. So I think we've come to the end of the session here, and we have plenty of time for questions. I'm happy to stay here as long as you'd like. So I just want to put up Nicole and my email addresses. I think you have our main info, but if you want to reach us at any point in the future, feel free. But yeah, we can just do a Q&A session right now. So I'll switch over as soon as you have that. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Okay. I want to screen share. Okay. Okay. So, any questions about windmills?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The building. No, I'm just like, okay, building.
Yeah, we're going to do some building now. Yeah, I think this is our last of our set, and
that's right. Yeah.
Facilitators this is their 5th go around, right? Yeah, this is their 5th time doing it.
Wow.
Third.
2nd grade, we had August, October, December.
Oh, you're right, it is
February. Sorry, their 4th time doing it.
Yeah, you're pros by now.
Their 4th time, so I think, most of it is the same format as we usually do. It's really just lessons 2, 3, and 4. But the structure is the same, so.
This will be fun. They'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I think they're going to enjoy doing it. So.
Yeah, this one's really fun. Yeah.
Okay, any last questions? Anybody? Going once, going twice? All right, I think that's it for us.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome. Good luck.
All right, thanks, Chantal, and thanks, Nicole. And we stay warm out there. And
you too.
If we have any questions, we'll reach out to you.
Please do. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
All right. Bye.
Bye.